Is after 9 o'clock. And Becky, would you call the roll?
Jim Sheeline,
Here.
Arlen McLean,
Here.
Doug Farster,
Here.
Rick Humphrey,
Here.
Tom Kitson,
Present.
Larry Mamini.
Just want to make a comment that the sheriff does know how to win friends and make enemies. We're these 3 days old, John, but. Oh, okay. We'll go to visitors. So we'll just go around the room. Marilyn, do you have anything for us?
Nope, just watching what you guys do.
All right, appreciate that.
Trying to keep track of you.
Courtney's already running up here to the podium. She's got something to say. Courtney Kennedy, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Good morning.
So I'm here on behalf of Junction Solar LLC. With me in the back is Keith Boland and Amber Miller. We're not on the agenda for finance, but we are for executive. Junction Solar is requesting a 2-year extension. And just to give you a little bit of history and background, you might recall Junction Solar came back in May of 2019, filed a petition for special use. It was a 100 megawatt solar project in Alto and Reynolds Township. Let me back up. The ZBA unanimously recommended it. The county board voted to approve the project on May 21st of 2019, subject to various conditions. One of those conditions was that the project be substantially underway within 3 years from the date that the county board approved it. So that would give us a May 21st, 2022 date. Your ordinance, the solar ordinance for which the project was permitted under, provides that the zoning administrator shall revoke a special use permit granted for a solar energy system when the use has not been established or substantially underway within 3 years from the date the special use was granted. The county board may extend this 3-year period for such time as it shall determine for good cause and without further hearing before either the zoning board of appeals or the county board. It's Junction Solar's position that we believe it to be substantially underway and therefore complies with the special use permit that was granted to it and the ordinance, in that it's commenced work on major project components. It's completed various transmission studies and secured a commercial offtake agreement for the sale of the electrical output of the facility. However, in working with Dee Duffy and her office, we believe that this route might be a little bit cleaner just to get another 2-year extension due to certain COVID delays and other unforeseen delays that the project has faced. So in working with Dee, we thought we would appear before the county board to seek a 2-year extension that would get us to May 21st of 2024. I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody have any questions? Right.
So I guess my one and only question probably is, there's been numerous ordinance changes to the solar, I guess, ordinances. And I believe they're under the first ordinance. With the extension, unless there's an agreement in place, would they be willing to comply with our updated ordinances or still under the old ordinances?
I think the county board would be bound, though I'd look to your state's attorney for that. But my opinion is the way that the ordinance reads is that you can seek an extension without further hearing, and you cannot substantively change due process rights without a full hearing. And if you were going to try to force, and I get that your question is more is, will the project agree to meet those conditions? But I don't believe that the county board has the authority to force the project to stand by the new ordinance requirements. I haven't discussed with the company whether or not it would be
It'd be
willing
something
to.
they'd be willing, if they'd be willing to do. I guess it makes the decision to extend a lot easier versus
Sure.
perhaps not granting the extension.
Sure. And even if the company were not willing to do that, I think the county board would be bound by past precedent. You might remember that the Green River project was granted a 2-year extension, and that was prior to COVID. And then there's been various other projects that have been granted extensions on that. So, I mean, I can speak with the company to see if they'd be willing to, but even if it wasn't, I don't think that you guys could force them to adhere to this requirement.
I know, I'm just telling you, you can't see it.
No.
Go ahead and answer the question.
Thank you. What would the estimated loss is there any loss revenue to the county if this extension is granted?
No.
So what would, okay.
No, it just means that, the company has made an investment in the county, and it's even gone so far as to spend money to start the project. The county's still going to receive all of the money that we pledged during the ZBA hearings. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get there. And to expound on what some of those delays are, PJM has faced considerable delays in its workforce and trying to get the various studies on its end conducted, which then makes ComEd delayed. So, I mean, these delays are not that the company's been sitting on its hands, it's just other third parties have faced delays and then it's trickling down.
Thanks, Gordon.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Courtney? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dee, Duffy and Alice, do you guys have anything? So I guess to follow up, Courtney, I guess question I have for you, Dee, is has there been when an extension has been asked for in the case like this, has there been any other consideration as far as the county putting a fee on an extension or anything like that? Has that ever been done?
Never have I ever.
No.
Okay, all right. I was just curious. So, all right. Any questions for Dee? Okay, thank you, Dee. Nancy Peterson,
I'm on the agenda.
you're on the agenda. Jennifer Boyd, anything for us? Stacy,
Better come up to the.
yep, come up to the mic, Stacy, you know the drill.
Shortly after last month's committee meetings, I received the reimbursement allocation from the state for our department. I did submit that by email to the county board chairman and Paula Meyer. Would you guys like a copy of that as well?
What, to frame?
I have it with me. Would you like that?
Sure.
I have also, it's also already built into that number I gave you earlier. I increased the budget for that because it's about 50,000 higher than what I'd originally put in the
Oh,
budget.
great. Great.
I'd done an estimate earlier based on last year or something.
The state of Illinois comes through with obligations. That's a wonderful thing. Oh, you want to put that in the mic, Stacy? The check is yet to arrive.
Checks in the mail.
Thanks, Stacy. And that'll be a good check.
And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Yeah, we need money. Wendy Ryerson, does the administrator have anything for us?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right, Paula?
Someone on Zoom here.
Oh, okay. Who all do we got?
Tom
We got
Wilson.
Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson, you have anything for us? All right. Kathy, do you have anything?
Not at this time, thank you.
Amy Johnson, do you have anything for us?
I have nothing. Thank you.
All right, very good. Treasurer Financial Monthly Report, Paula. Do you have anything on that
I
other than?
just, unless you have questions for me, it is not a quarter end yet. So you just have the monthly ones to look over and I don't have anything special to add.
Anybody have any questions for Paula? We'll do the deep dive next month. Insurance committee is, I guess the only thing we have on that is that I am stepping back from my role as chairman of the insurance committee and
Health
Mr.
insurance.
of the health insurance, correct? The health insurance committee and Mr. Humphrey has been gracious enough to take up that charge. So just want to make a note of that. So having said that, is there anything you have any comments of? Okay,
No, not yet.
all right. And Liram's not here, so we'll hopefully next month we'll get a Gredco report. Monthly resolutions. Nancy. Anything on the Joseph Meyer resolutions?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
No, nothing out of the usual. There's just quite a few this month, 17, as you see there.
All right, we might as well stay up there, Nancy, because you're next. So we'll move on to old business. Oh, do it. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You know, you got a new guy. You got to help the new guy out. Jeez. Oh, yes, you do have that highlighted. Okay, so I entertain motion to move, and the motion would be to move these to executive. Correct. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Forster. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Old business, and thank you for the corrections. Keep me on track. Nancy, election equipment bid and update.
Okay, you'll see in front of you, I handed out the two companies that handed in the bids for my sealed bids. GBS is the current company that we have right now. They came in at a total of $217,095. And that amount is the same if we leased it or if we bought it outright. The next company is Liberty Systems, which you see in front of you there. They came in at $202,900. And if the county would pay in full within 30 days of the inventory delivery, the purchase price would be $197,750. So I believe I'm here in front of the board. It was approved through the ARPA grant that it was eligible for us to receive money to purchase the equipment, if that's what the county would like to do. There are several things you can see in the papers. I know it probably looks foreign to most people. Liberty comes through at a lesser dollar amount, but they also do offer a lot more amenities to our contract. GBS, the county has had them for 15 years. And they, in my opinion, didn't want to budge or work with that number that you see there, which is 217. Questions?
Nancy, is it similar equipment? I mean, there's from a standpoint of using it, setting it up, is there a learning curve or is it? I know nothing about this, so I apologize.
Right. Since our current software was not going to be usable after the end of November, there's going to be, a curve anyway with any new equipment. They are, believe it or not, there are several election companies out there, and they are all just a little different. We did see both of these companies come in with their equipment, and Liberty has just a little bit of a user-friendly equipment, but it is going to be a huge learning curve going into next year because everyone's going to have to learn to use the new equipment. That's one huge asset with Liberty is that they come in, it's included in that price, and they will come in and train election judges. They will train myself, train my girls downstairs in election. GBS, that in the previous 15 years, it was something that was done by the election department themselves. They had to come up with their own spiel to train election judges. So that was another huge plus with Liberty.
You sound very passionate about Liberty. I just wanted your opinion, so that's great. Thank you.
There, from the conference that I went to several months ago, they're very caring, wonderful people. They've reached out to me quite often if I had any questions or anything. And it's unfortunate that the GBS company that this county has had for 15 years never made me feel welcome. And I just never got a really good feeling with this company that we presently had.
Sometimes it's just good to make a change.
Absolutely.
So for the process here, Nancy, we'll let Arlen get his silence. Here we go. So the process is this is going to come up and it's been recommended from the ARPA committee that the cost of this would be used in the ARPA money. Do we need to accept the bid and then approve the use of the ARPA money? So, or can we do that in a single motion? I guess is.
That
my
is correct. So then it can move on to executive.
Correct. So that's what you're looking for, is to accept the bid and then authorize the use from the ARPA money.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any further questions for Nancy?
Well, I don't know if this is Nancy, but is this a contract that Charlie reviews before it's signed? Okay, so we'll make sure Charlie reviews the contract, right? Before it's, I don't know what our normal process is, but I know we've got a couple.
Since we haven't done this in 15 years,
Well,
so.
we have a couple things that slipped through that crack.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
make
right.
sure we've got Charlie's approval. So.
Okay.
One question.
Doug?
Nancy, real quick, the other counties that are currently using the Liberty systems, have you spoken to any of the other clerks? Are they happy? I know you're saying the personnel that came to you, came out and said, we'll do this, this, and this. Have you actually discussed with any of the surrounding counties that possibly have this Liberty system?
Yes, I have.
And they're all,
Yes. Whiteside County, I know the clerk there very well, and she has said nothing but wonderful things about the company. And then just FYI, just recently, Laura Cook over in Ogle County, she has moved to Liberty Systems also.
okay, well, that's good to know. I just want to hear some background, but someone comes in, they have a great salesman, they offer you this, and they.
Absolutely.
They got the price beat, then you get them, you go, holy crap, we can't, this isn't working, so.
Absolutely. And Liberty Systems they're moving highly into Illinois. They were very big in Missouri and in Iowa. And they also just went on board. Boone County went on board with them also. And I have a rapport with her, and she's very, very happy with them also.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Great.
And Nancy, on this bid here, it also has a laptop and battery backups. I think that we had some battery backups, if I remember correctly, in IT. I know we talked about laptops and stuff before. I'm sure this is, specialized equipment, but my concern is, is our IT department responsible in helping you do any of this? I want to make sure that the equipment's going to be conducive to what they're used to working with, and we're not going to have to hire somebody else to come in if we have issues. So I guess that's my question. Has this been run through the IT department?
I've worked very closely with Paul Gorski on that, and that is correct. He's on board with me in whichever company I would choose.
Not necessarily. I'm talking more specifically on the computer and the battery backup stuff. Have you talked to him specifically about those two items?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So no, we'll do that in new business. So that was why I asked whether, how procedurally, how would we do that? Just so everybody knows, because this is really a significant change of what we were looking at in cost is because on the election equipment in capital, we'd actually had that under fiscal year 24 projection. And this is the same thing, right?
Yes.
So, and we had that at $340,000.
Yes.
So coming in at 197, that's great. So
Correct.
good deal on getting a good bid and hopefully everything will work out well there. So thank you very much.
That's what we're hoping. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, new business. So, yep. We're gonna do it in new business. Yep. Nope, you're good. You're just keeping the new guy on track, Becky, and I appreciate that. So,
It's tough for it, too.
I know. Don't go there. So under budget review discussion, so what I put there, we actually had the sheriff had emailed Becky for him to be on there, and I think it was just in case we had some rollover discussion, from the budget hearing this morning. So I instead of doing that specifically, I put in budget discussion in case that we wanted to have any further discussion on the overall budget. So I think probably, Ms. Treasurer, what we're probably going to need is to have everything that the changes that we've made and have that all updated. And I guess at this point, is there any other further changes that we have? If we would, and our decision-making process, we're going to have to talk about and decide on, I think we are down to, I have this all written out. So if we would accept the sheriff's proposal as it was presented this morning, how that hit the, and one thing that we did not in regards to his, and I suppose the sheriff left, all right, one thing that we didn't clean up that we ran out of time on, and that was in regards to the vehicles, on whether or not let's say, okay, so we're doing one. Yep. Yeah, sheriff. Hey, Chris, grab the sheriff.
Grab the sheriff.
Not you, Chris Norberg, the sheriff. How you doing, Mr. Norberg? I was just commenting that we put budget discussion instead of being specific to you, but there is a question that we ran out of time on and that we didn't get to. And that isn't the question in regards to the vehicles. So we approve your budget request. And I'm saying if we approve your budget request for additional patrol guys, you're putting, so that would be a addition to two or one. Well, no, that would be one car. And I guess my question there is that and of course you had that. So we had a vehicle every single time we hire a patrol, we get a car. Is that absolutely necessary? Can we because you've got two guys for patrol in your material that you presented this morning. So that would be that you were looking at next two more in 23 fiscal year.
Next
For the next cycle. So then we'd be adding two more cars. So I'm looking at it from the rotation standpoint. That's actually going to add another additional vehicle in the rotation. One more vehicle in the rotation. So your capital request is going to go up by, it's 133 right now. That's going to go up by another vehicle, which is going to be.
I have 3 other squads in there. He originally requested 3 other squads in there.
Right.
But we'll be reducing that additional.
Out of the capital. I'm just making the point that we're going to be adding a whole nother vehicle into the rotation.
Correct.
And is there as we talk about floating positions and all that, is it really necessary that we add a car, a fully equipped car at substantial cost to the county with every single patrol officer? Or can we mix and do some things that reduce that capital cost?
Well, from an efficiency and response standpoint, no. So I've got deputies displaced geographically around the county where they want to live. So they go on the air as soon as they get in their car in their driveway, and they can respond to any call. I could tell you that more times than not at shift change, we've got some kind of call that's being prolonged, either an accident, domestic, whatever it might be. So we've got the night shift coming on. They can go right to that call, relieve the deputies there. It's getting home. If they have to come to the office, you got somebody that's living in the Sublette area, they got to come to the office in their personal car, then change their gear over into the squad car and then try to get to that incident. You have now added probably 45 to 50 minutes on before you can respond to that call. Better example is we got somebody that lives 3 miles from Jim Sheeline's house. He has to drive by your house. You're calling for service. We got nobody close to you right now other than him. He has to drive to the office first to get a squad car, put all his gear in that car, which there's quite a bit of gear depending on what your specialty might be, and then get back to Jim Sheeline's house. So that prolongs our response to anybody. Plus the fact when I've got people that do live, east of Dixon, we get quite a few calls on the east side at shift change, be it on 39, Pawpaw, wherever it might be. If they've got to come into the office first, again, it just prolongs that time. Plus, when we started this vehicle rotation, when I first got in, it's not an exact science, but about every 3 years, somebody's getting a new vehicle. So what we've done is we've maintained pretty much status quo in that maintenance light on it, because predominantly most of our repairs, most of them are covered under warranty. Other than that, it's just oil changes and some brakes. And we go to a specific service center here in Dixon that does a lot of proactive maintenance on our vehicles. So we don't have those large ticket items. And to follow that up is when we do rotate every 3 years, we're now getting approximately 5,500 to 6,000 more for each trade-in when we're trading in for another vehicle. So if we're buying a $34,000 vehicle, we're really only paying about 26 to 27 for it.
No, I'm
That's what I'm
all
trying
on
to
board
do.
with the rotation. I think that's actually a net cost savings to the county without any doubt. But the thing of it is it's just, as we talk about flex positions and is it really necessary to have a vehicle per patrol, for every patrol officer? Or can we mix and match and do some things creatively? I'm just trying to figure out, John.
Yeah, it'd be super difficult and our response time would be at least tripled.
Okay.
But I guess leading in with Jim's point is that the whole idea of adding this is we're going to add another flex position, a person that's not necessarily a scheduled regular road deputy. They're going to be filling in for whatever the case may be. And so it goes back to my point earlier about the vacation scheduling and stuff like that. I mean, we're talking one vehicle. I mean, I think that if we can't manage our personnel to where we can utilize one car with maybe because you'll have multiple flex people. I'm assuming now if you add additional one, maybe that car is just for the flex people alone, and your regular deputies take theirs home like they've been doing. Again, it would take some management. I'm not saying that, but I think that we should be able to get some efficiencies that way. That's my point, my concern.
We won't get any efficiencies. It'll be deficient. That's one thing I'm going to be very adamant about. I've seen this work in geographic areas that sheriff's departments and state police have to work in, and there's absolutely no way that you can switch cars like you're talking and all the gear that we carry in those cars and then try to respond efficiently to some incident that may occur, because you're going to be driving into work and you're going to see something, sure as hell. And we don't have a roll call where city departments come in and they meet at shift change.
But Sheriff,
Everybody talks
if
about
you
it.
had a situation going on, those people that were on duty, they wouldn't just leave, would they? They'd still stay there and either finish that call up or.
No, they wouldn't have to finish it up. The night shift would finish it up for them. They would be responding to that
So
call right away. As a matter of fact,
they're in the
I'd call
middle
them
of a
early.
response at a call. They're just gonna go home?
Yeah,
at the
they'll
end
go
of their
home
12
and night shift will finish it up. Yep. That way we can reduce again the amount of
So-
overtime and time they're
So if
staying
that's the
after shift.
case, when are we incurring the overtime? I mean, at 12 hours is the end of their shift, and they don't start incurring overtime until after 12 hours.
Correct.
But yet we're incurring all this overtime. But if they're going home at the end of 12 hours, when do we incur the overtime?
Because we're so short-handed that we got 860 days of vacation time.
But
to
that
cover.
doesn't equate to
Plus
300,000.
Pardon?
That doesn't equate to 300,000
And work comp
in overtime.
and work comp injuries. That means we're short on every shift. Right now, as soon as I lost this corrections deputy, we're short every single shift from now until we can hire somebody, which means we're incurring overtime every single day. And then we're going to lose one to surgery here in about 4 weeks. They've totaled that up. That's going to be about $12,000 just to cover his shift, let alone the other one that's already gone. So yeah, it totals up pretty quick.
Well, one of the things that we had kicked around in brainstorming is that of course, and you kind of clarified where your position was this morning on that, and was that instead of hiring dedicated correctional officers, that we'd hire patrol that were also certified corrections, and they were going to be doing some flip-flopping around. And then the question was asked, okay, then do you need to have a dedicated car to those guys that were going back and forth from patrol to they? John, we're trying to just figure out, you understand, we're trying to figure out budget savings here, and that's,
We are so short-staffed right now that it doesn't seem like anything I say makes any sense. I mean, I wish I could put a map up in front of you right now, and show you what night shift does. We got 3 zones on night shift. And as soon as somebody gets an accident on 39 and the center shift car gets an arrest, I got 1 deputy out there on night shift for 2.5 hours by himself. Are we going to start talking about safety here? Nobody's talking about safety. They're talking about saving dollars. I'm talking about saving patrol deputies' lives, or at least protecting them. I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about this, and we've gone way too long. This started long before me. And I don't know what the other sheriffs did and why they didn't request extra staffing, but we are in dire need of it. These guys are working way, way too much, and something bad is going to happen.
I don't think anybody's denying that. We're talking about a car right here. We're not talking.
No,
about
we
staffing.
didn't just talk
No,
about a
that's
car.
what we
We
were-
went into the flex positions and everything else I'm trying to do to strategize and try to keep this staffing request as conservative as I possibly can. We are way understaffed for this size of department, and we're trying to work through it as best we can. And you know what? Regardless of what you decide, based on my 40 years experience in this business, we'll still get it done. We will still get it done. And that's kind of sad.
nobody doubts your ability to get things done. You've proven that over and over, and we appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other budget review items that anybody has? Yep, Arlen?
I'm gonna deal with $15 an hour. Is there a reason to wait?
So here's my question to you. This is what I need from you guys to finish this budget. In the next 2.5 weeks, this budget has to be done so that I can get it in shape to put it on the October agenda. So you have 2.5 weeks. We are 380,000 in the hole. There was one other request that I added in there, which was $16,000 for a health insurance consultant, since we're starting to apparently look at our health insurance coverage. So that's, and I can give you guys, I can run downstairs while you're finishing your meeting or whatever and get you current copies of what the budget is, but we should probably set up another meeting. Or unless you want to finish your budget, finish your agenda items here and run out your time before the executive meeting starts at 11. You have about an hour.
We might be able to do that.
Okay,
Up to the committee, but let's try to do that.
all right. So you want to finish your couple of things? You want me to make you some copies in the meantime?
Yep, because
Okay.
we've got 2 items under ARPA that should go pretty quick, and then we got tuck pointing change, and then
I'll be back
we're
shortly.
rolling.
Okay.
All right.
I thought,
Mr. Chairman.
You want the general fund and capital, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The other question that I need, because I don't think I ever got a list of what you guys approved for the senior services expenses. You have 100,000 there, and I don't know what you have to request, but I might be able to get that from Becky because I didn't make that meeting.
So as I remember, what we did there was we approved the amounts that we did last year.
Okay.
And then then we encouraged them, all those groups, to go through ARPA to see how much of that could be picked up by ARPA.
Okay.
And so I think that's where we're
Okay.
at now. So as far as for budget purposes, we just use the numbers from last year.
Perfect. Thanks.
There we go. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Arlen, did you have something else?
No, go ahead.
This would normally fall under budget situations. I'm going to bring it up before we leave that category. I'm not going to draw it out like I did before or put any of you through the ringer or try to or anything. But this morning, there's been very little discussion
on the 911 dispatcher situation. And I can understand everything that was discussed about it so far, receptive or non-receptive. Yesterday at Public Safety, we had a motion to make a request, which was passed unanimously with all the committee members, to bring it to the Finance Committee that we request that you fund another 911 dispatcher. It's a situation conducive to what the sheriff is experiencing right now, but you know yourself, anybody sitting out there in business, if your business increases, how do you take care of it? You work it out. There has not been any changes personnel-wise since 1996 with 911. If there are questions, something that has not been done yet, and I'm not faulting anybody, you need to get the director of 911 in here and ask some questions. And I'm not saying that the sheriff hasn't done anything on that. He's strapped with other situations too. But let me put this in the equation for you. If you don't have proper staffing for 911, who's going to give the sheriff's department and local police departments that are in this jurisdiction of 911 their calls? Who's going to give them their backup? Who's going to help that officer that may be in need of emergency backup or may be injured or anything like that? We need another dispatcher, period. If we don't have enough information, please tell me on behalf of public safety. I'll ask Shelley if she'll come up and talk with you. She's simply the director of 911. She sees the information that's going on. She sees the statistics. She knows the number of calls that we're having. And I'm not saying that the sheriff doesn't, but there hasn't been enough discussion as far as I'm concerned to give them one person over a 5-year period of time that they've had no increase on. Yet what happens with the calls out here? Dixon City, Franklin Grove, Amboy, Ashton, Pawpaw. Those calls aren't slowing down. Those personnel are still in the same regime. I think Arlen had a very good point that he refreshed us on as far as funding that's coming in and where it's coming from. If we need to address that, that's fine. But we need one dispatcher. And public safety is asking for the finance committee to request the funding for one dispatcher.
Thank you, Mike. Okay,
Mike, two questions.
Yes.
I was under the impression the 911 had the same staffing pattern and that had a substitute in that they really were able to cover pretty well. So is there something new? Are they doing less positions than they had last year?
I don't feel that they're dealing with any less, Arlen. I'd have to, converse with Shelley unless Keen, you're familiar with that. Keen's the liaison. I represent law enforcement. They're not any less, but I am privy to information that there may be more medical situations that enter into the staffing for there. They need somebody, Arlen. It's just that plain and simple.
The other question related to that, because when I did the negotiation for the county on the 911, there was discussion of coverage then. That was 3 years ago, so things could have changed drastically. The other part of that is I'm under the impression that 911 has increased its tremendous amount of money to their budget based on the fact of doing the cell phone paying before. And the question is, do they have the money to pay for the staff themselves?
Well, you have to realize that the members of the 911 staff are sheriff's department employees, not 911 employees. Their budget is their budget for functioning for what their expenses are. The 911 dispatchers are under the direction of the sheriff.
That's correct, but we do charge 911 for some things now, and there's nothing that says they can't. I just was under the impression, I don't know that because she didn't present. It was an issue that they the staffing pattern, at least 3 years ago, I'm not saying that current, they had enough to cover their coverage before. Now, something may have changed. Secondarily, I was under the impression they had substantially more money that they could consider funding themselves. That hasn't presented either, but those are old pieces of information. I don't know if that's
Right.
still current, so I don't have any problem.
But
The
the only way that you can find that information out, Arlen, is to ask. And if we're not sure which direction to go, to ask, you know, and I'm not criticizing anybody.
Oh, I understand that.
I totally support what the sheriff's attempting to do, but I've been there. I've seen the negotiations before. I know what the budget situation is. And believe me, there isn't anybody in here that's probably any more concerned about the budget than I am. I don't like to overspend.
I believe also that there is movement that's possible with the city because they are still getting a really good deal with us. We should follow up on that next year also.
Well, hopefully sooner than that. So I have John and then Keen, if you have some comments.
Yeah,
So-
you've got a couple of board members here on 911 and they can speak from looking from the inside out. So they're very knowledgeable, but for statistical purposes, gentlemen, in 1996, 911 was given 9 employees. In 2021, they still got 9 employees and their call volume has gone from 1,856 911 calls, 1,858 911 calls, to 9,748 calls. Now, I don't know of any other department that's workload has gone up basically 500% that hasn't got some extra bodies.
King, sure.
Yes, and this has been brought up.
Just make sure you get in the mic, King.
With the flash is on.
Oh, yeah, don't touch the button.
Okay, it been brought up the fact that there has been an overload of calls over the years, and especially the fact that there has been no additional employees, and we're talking several years, 1996. That's a long time to go with the same staffing. And with it, and I know they've had issues with health issues, injuries, and if you go back to your records over the last few years, you will see that some employees there, and they deserved it, they made as much, if I'm not mistaken, as much money in overtime as they did just about as their general salary, annual salary per year. Now, once again, this is overtime. You can never predict how much overtime you're going to use, same as what the sheriff says and the chief deputy. You don't know how much overtime you're going to go. You can't predict who's going to be off or whatever on that issue. But I think, and I agree with Mr. Copine that I think some of these questions could be answered by Director Dallas.
The one thing from, again, the 3 years ago, our 911 staff are the highest paid in the state, at least they were 3 years ago. Highest paid per the unit. So for whatever it was worth.
That's probably why we don't have a turnover.
But, excuse me.
Probably one of the reasons why the county doesn't have a large turnover in TCOs either. I'm not saying that,
Right.
they don't deserve that money,
I didn't say
You
that
know,
either.
but we do. We have quality employees throughout the sheriff's department.
I
As
think
far as I'm concerned, any in Lee County, we have qualified people. And let's face it, if you want to keep them, you try
really
to keep
good
them.
people. They don't turn over for that reason.
But once again, I think Director Dallas would definitely be a integral part to, a lot of questions.
Just so we're clear, the finance committee has not made a decision at all in regards. So we have improved. We had, the sheriff came in this morning in the budget hearing and did amend his request and has that extra dispatcher in place. So when Paula comes back and has the new updated numbers, then we'll, I think the intent is to go ahead and have that discussion. So let's hold things. If you have some more comments, be glad to hear them, Keen. Yeah.
I may,
Yep.
is it possible to go back to the sheriff's request? Personnel.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll all be part and parcel, Keen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to use personal experience, but I was involved. And this is before Sheriff Simonton took office. We had a call from neighboring county, Whiteside County. Had a convicted felon in court. He escaped from court, assaulted 2 deputies, stole a car, ended up on Perry Road just outside of Stewart, tried to break into a home which was occupied by a mother and a young child. We had definitely, we found him, he bailed out of a car, stole another car. Ended up, we found him in a field, we chased him in a field. I had a young lad that was working overtime. But because of the so-called restraint, he could not participate in this situation. I ended up wrestling this man in a field where he almost got my firearm. In fact, he got his finger inside the holster and got a round off. Now, and I say this.
No, when you say restraint, what, explain that. I don't understand that.
I'm sorry,
The restraint side, you come in, what does that mean?
I tried to restrain the subject.
Well, I know you were trying to restrain the suspect, but the other officer that was at the scene.
No, there
Yeah.
was no officer. I had a state trooper, thank the Lord. That ended up coming across, he ran across the field where I was able to cut the fellow off about 150 feet from my house. All I could think of, a hostage situation. This is what we're gonna end up here. And so anyway, I ended up tackling this man. And I take this pretty hard because I know I had to roll around the field with this guy, plowed field. But the guy that was right there less than 5 miles away from me that day was told he could not participate because of overtime restrictions. Go back.
Oh, that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly. And I know what the sheriff is saying because I've been there. I know Mr. Copine's been there, but I can tell you, I rolled around and I honestly, to this day, I don't know what could have happened. All I was told by it because of the fact that I held my retained retention of my weapon. It caused my holster to go out and the round went into the ground. But the way the holsters were set up, it would have hit me in the artery.
Sure.
And I was told by personnel, if it would have hit me, it never got me. It bled out.
Yep.
I'm just saying this personal experience and not just be, I should not use myself, but I know what it's like to be there. And I tell you what, folks, you can't put a price on a life, and that's just not law enforcement. That is the citizens. So.
Appreciate the comment. All right, so the next item before we come back to the budget is the tuck pointing change order with Berglund. Does anybody, who's carrying that?
Want me to elaborate on that?
Well, probably you or Wendy, whichever.
Coming out of-
I don't have any other information on that.
Okay. Do that, and I got my injured reserve up there on the board, Mr. Wilson. And so he can elaborate on it too. But as you were well aware, we came in.
Yeah, you got to talk in the mic, John.
Came in with a very good bid on the tuck pointing of the courthouse. Back in last year's capital plan, he'd allotted $500,000, came in at $215,000. And what it ended up to be is there were some, as with most construction projects, there were some things that needed to be fixed after they got into the job. And it resulted in a change order. That change order came to $50,000. So we got together with Berglund and we talked this out with them because that seemed quite high. And what it amounted to in the end is they gave us credit for $9,009 where they did not seal the grout, which is not wise in an old building like this to seal the grout. That had been included in the original contract. They also gave us credit for $20,000 that would have been involved in patching various things in this courthouse. The things that they were going to patch came to what they call Dutchmen, which were beyond patching. They needed to be repaired. And so the net amount that they are requesting to do these 49 Dutchmen is $21,858.14. Very typical in a construction project like this that you have change orders. And so that's what we're requesting. Still well below budget, well below the capital plan. and it passed unanimously to bring to finance today out of property.
Okay, you want, and that's coming out of capital,
Yes,
21
it was
additional,
already budgeted
28.
last year to do that.
Don, what's the total cost? Was an
Total
additional
cost
cost?
of the whole
Well, there was an-
project.
There was an additional cost because we delayed getting started, right?
Well, the original cost, we didn't have a meeting in March of last year, if you recall, because of the COVID outbreak. Because of that, it created a $10,000 cost that had been built in and asked for in the contract originally. So we paid them that at Mr. Bauer's request. So that $10,000 went in.
So
went
what is,
out. Bob
adding all this
authorized that.
together, what's our total?
The total cost together
Yeah.
would be 215,000, $10,000 for the late start, and 21,858.14 for the change order.
So do you have anything from Berglund as far as these changes?
Do I have it from them?
Yeah,
Right here.
yeah, because I didn't have, we don't have any.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
under the impression it would be in your packet.
No,
It
it
was
is,
on the agenda. I'm sorry, Becky.
yeah,
Okay,
please.
certainly, if you want.
All right, well, while Becky's
I mean,
making,
basically, it comes, the total figure came in at 50,000 and change. And then there was a deduct of 20,000 because they pulled the repair or they pulled the patching out of the contract and gave us the repair bill.
okay,
That
while
correct,
she's
Mr.
getting,
Wilson?
while she's getting that material, John, I skipped over, I made a mistake and I skipped over an item. And so let me get that cleaned up
fine.
and she'll get
She'll
those
get it for
copies
you.
to us and then we'll finish up that. So I skipped over B inadvertently, and we've got the two items for consideration that were approved during the ARPA meeting, and that was the expanded parking at the LEC, and then the bid as presented by County Clerk Peterson. So it's been recommended that both of those two items are being expended. They've been qualified at the ARPA committee as valid use for the ARPA money. And that was their recommendation to us. And I think we just need a motion to spend those dollars to accept that bid and also accept the work for the LEC.
Okay.
So, okay. So I have a motion by Arlen, seconded by Forrester. Discussion. Tom?
Can we have some explanation of what the parking lot extension LEC is?
Yeah.
That's first I've heard of it, so I don't know about everybody else.
Oh, you probably, yeah, it was probably one of the meetings that you missed, Tom, when you were, yeah, Sheriff.
You guys, I didn't hear about it.
It's the,
I
on the north,
Okay. All right.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the north side of the building where we have the lane going into the kitchen area and also back to the maintenance shed, it's one single lane. We're seeing now that we've been there for a while, maintenance trucks coming in there and they're starting to tear up some of the grass. Plus with our new food service that we approved last year, there's more people that are there employed in parking. So we just have one lane and you're getting everybody blocked when people have to do work. So what we're planning on doing, I got a bid from the Helm Group to widen that twice as wide as what it is right now, going back to the maintenance shed so we can get larger trucks back there and around where the food service people are parking as well. I think the bid came in at a little over 17,000.
I think it was 17,000. Yeah, I think
We
that's
have a
right.
bid there. So that's what that's for, Tom.
So how does that qualify for, I wasn't able to vote, so I wasn't able to attend the ARPA meeting. I mean, how did that get quantified as a?
Mr. Rodolphe, I can't remember.
Well, I think to some degree that qualifies in the sense that we are trying to keep less people entering the jail, and it's keeping the food staff away from others such that this allows delivery of that and the equipment to work better with that delivery, and you're not tearing up the parking lot, but it's more of a COVID trying to mitigate more people coming in. And so the food service allows that where now you just have instead of a delivery every day with different food, different people, you're only having a limited number of people. I think that's how we were looking at that through the COVID use of the ARP money. Is that correct, John? Yeah, I don't have I didn't have it in front of me, but I know Sarah had looked at it and it seemed like it worked.
We're pretty confident it'll be funded.
Oh, it is. The ARPA committee made the recommendation, so it's up to us. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I thought the last meeting through the committee, we kind of passed it on to the finance committee as a viable use of funds.
Correct.
So again, I apologize for not being able to attend the last meeting. From the ARPA's committee standpoint, have we decided how we are going to divide up the money? I mean, there's been talk about percentage towards government bodies, percentage towards, businesses out there, percentage towards residential that might have been affected, but has that decision been made?
No, not entirely. What the last meeting did, we did allow a couple people to present to the committee some uses in terms of what they would need and an urgency, if you will. But our next meeting will be strictly focused on how we split them, where our split is going to be, what we're going to try to drive it to, and how we're going to use this, and then projects then beyond that and how that splits out.
So these are the first two projects
Right.
that has been
But
recommended by the ARPA
And
committee.
I'm comfortable with that portion being done. I guess what I'm uncomfortable with is starting to spend the money until we know clear cut how it's going to be divvied up. We're basically taking away from the pie. We don't know how the pie is going to be distributed.
But it's a
And what
very,
other-
very small. I
understand.
think your comment's fair. It's just, this is a pretty small piece of the pie.
You start
So, yeah. Well, I think.
10 pennies equal a dime.
I think that the ARPA committee, that's why, as Paul has laid out, that these are the first two projects that they did recommend to us, and that the concentration is going to be exactly what you want to do. Which, as a member of that committee, we're going to have to get off the combine and be a part of that meeting, Rick, both of us.
Correct. And it is a fair comment. And that's why we kind of laid the next meeting out to be strictly, all right, let's point this in the ship in the right direction as to how we want to do this.
Right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Yep. Whoop. John, go ahead. This is just the ARPA, John, just the ARPA. So I jumped over and to Bergland, and I skipped over B while Paula was doing her thing and Becky was getting the stuff from John. So we have a motion on the floor. Yeah. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion, those opposed? So 4 ayes, 1 nay, motion carries. And the motion was to approve the funding requests on the two items, the expanded parking at the LEC and the election equipment. Okay, and that was accepting the bid as presented by the county clerk. Oh, yeah, because it's the low bid. Yeah, it's the low bid. All right, so we are back to C, and we have the Bergland information in front of us.
The first sheet you see is the $20,000 deduct for instead of doing the patching work, doing the repair work. And then the second sheet shows the $10,000 for the late start date. And that has been authorized and the check is already in the mail. Then the deduct work, Dutchman work, the 58,6714 is there. Then the deduct for the $909 is for not having to seal the grout, which is unwise on a building like this to seal the grout. The moisture has to be.
Okay.
It doesn't weep out, it weeps in, and That's part of the problem we got. Somewhere through the years, the building was sealed. And it's what's caused some of the damage we have on the interior wall. With a net there, it shows a net of 31,858.14, but you have to deduct $10,000 from that.
So the reason, so you're looking for us to pass this, are we approving this here in finance?
As a final say so, yes. Came out of properties on a unanimous vote to do it because it is just change order for work that was found, as part of the contract. And Mr. Wilson, do you have anything to add? Dom?
Unmute.
You're mute, Dom.
How's
Mr.
that?
Wilson is a commercial contractor.
That's better.
as Everybody knows.
Can I make just one comment? You guys budgeted in the capital budget 250,000 for this project. So as far as budget goes, you technically have the money.
Okay, well, that's more
Well-
important. Is there, here, Tom, hold on a second. Let me get, I'll entertain a motion to approve this, since it's already included in the budget. So this amendment to the work order, I think it's cleaner that we have a motion and a second and a vote on that. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Humphrey. Okay, discussion. Tom, do you want to make some comments?
No, the only thing that, with the contract was, there was repair work to be done and we had a credit in there for that. And they're actually doing replacement of, so they're actually cutting 49 spots out and replacing them. And if we were to not spend the money and take the $29,000 off of the total cost of the job, it would probably cost us $50,000 to $60,000 later to do the Dutchman on a separate contract. So in lieu of the amount of money we're spending, I think it's a really good, a good number while they're there getting it done to spend 21,000 as opposed to maybe spending as much as $70,000 to do it differently.
Rick?
I would concur with that. I think while we're here, we need to get it done. I mean, the money was budgeted. My question is more in line with, I was under the impression that there was a grant coming from the state to do this. I know we had 250,000 set aside plus the state grant. I think the original we thought was going to be like 500,000 to do this project. So my question is what's the status of the grant coming from the state? Is anything happening with that, or is that just gone by the wayside?
I have no information on that. That was supposed to be dollars that our state representative had secured through special legislation from Springfield. I don't know the stat. I haven't heard any status. Does anybody know John?
My understanding is the money has been budgeted, but last conversation with Congressman or Representative Demmer, it just has not been released.
Okay, so you understand, John, now Tom has to come through for us, just like Stacy came through for us this morning. I think, I guess that's where we're at.
So the expectation is this 250,000 will be coming back in the form of a grant or some from the state. Is that?
I think
That's the expectation. I did not get in on the handling of that. That was done between Mr. Bowers and Congress or Representative Demmer. So
well, I'm going by old memory, which isn't very reliable, but I think the initial cost estimate was around that 500,000 and we were going to get reimbursed for half. So whether now
Well, that's my question. Is it
Yeah,
going to
is
be
it half
250 or is it going to be 125?
and I can't answer that. I don't know. Was that a 50-50 deal? Okay. All right.
John, as you're the replacement for Dave, I mean, who's gonna follow up with Tom Demmer?
I'll call Tom this afternoon.
And I can promise you all kinds of stuff and walk away and,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be.
Well, we
rude
just
to
got to make
anybody,
sure
but-
it's in part of Tom's
Right, yeah.
request.
This is a lot of money to
Districts have been
spend. if we don't-
changed and so I'll call him this afternoon.
Okay.
Got him on speed.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It is 10 after 10. Do we dare? Does anybody, is the committee okay? Do we need to take a break? Keep rolling? All right, I don't want anybody in pain, as we go through this next part. I want everybody to be comfortable. Okay, hearing none.
Taking a break isn't a change.
Yeah, Paul. Or Paul. The previous, I thought we did.
No, you did.
Didn't we?
Minutes For the previous meeting, we were right into the agenda.
Oh, we did go in right in the agenda. I was. Okay, all right, so. Okay. This was the last budget workshop. Okay, so we need to approve those and the previous finance committee minutes and the minutes from the special meeting this morning. You don't have those done. Okay.
Any minutes that are outstanding.
Just tell him what you want him to do.
Exactly. So we would be, does anybody have any additions or corrections to the last budget workshop minutes and we tried, there were several motions made, not many got passed. And last month's finance committee minutes. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting those as read, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Now, Paula, what do you have for us?
So I handed out, and it's dated at the top 9/9, because today is 9/9. General budget and a capital budget. So, some of the changes that we had done when Jim asked me to put them into the budget, or some of the requests, most of those are probably listed on page 2. And I kind of bolded some of the things I guess you probably have to make some decisions about. I also want to point out that there's a additional $400,000 transfer out. I don't know if we talked about, my timing is getting blurry, but Rick pointed out that we're bringing in an extra $400,000 in zoning fees that are really sort of one-time fees. He requested that those just be moved right back out to the capital fund and not be considered as part of your operating income for the year. So that's how come we ended up more or less $400,000 in the hole. And Rick can speak to that if he would like, but
I just feel that one-time money is, if it ever does dry up and we make budget decisions based on personnel and everything else, and we don't have the ability to fund it, it does ourselves no good to sugarcoat things and create positions that we can't continue to fund. So not that we couldn't balance the budget this year. The question is what do you do in future years?
So that 400,000 is gone from this budget to
It's in capital, it just got moved.
it's in capital,
really, if you count that money, it's not a debt service.
correct.
There's a couple things on here, we approving like the new maintenance shop and some of that, I know we have different things going on, so what are you requesting?
You need to,
Please use your microphone.
What is the cat?
okay, so capital, so I gave you 2 things. One of them was the general fund, which I just talked about. Capital is the other item. It's only 2 pages. So the list of projects that are still out there on that project list are listed in the FY22 projected column. That's what you still have out there projected, even though there are a few things that I didn't have dollar amounts for. They weren't submitted with dollar amounts. There's question marks there. So right now you have about 850,000 in requests. So that's the other thing I guess you guys need to decide is whether or not you are going to fund all of the things that are still on that list.
Or do we, are the things that we feel don't belong on the list, we voted out? Or
Right? You're gonna tell me to take it off.
Well, we probably should, we're bopping around and we're
Yes.
gonna get lost.
Go down, let's go down line item by line.
So that's why I was gonna ask how you guys wanted to proceed and, so do you want to start and just go through each department and kind of say yay, nay? And actually, most of them would be pretty quick, or how do you want to do it?
I think
guess
on
I'm asking
page-
you guys.
Page 2, Paula has kind of highlighted some of the major topics we need to discuss. I don't know that there was any large item that stuck out in anyone's budget other than these things that she has here. So maybe we start here. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
Well, we can do that and then we can go run through and see if there's any additions or corrections that we want to do for anything else. That's fine with me because that's the heavy lift. Page 2 is the heavy lift. So.
Well, yes, page 2 is sort of the changes, the new money as opposed to what might be in people's budgets historically. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I thought that maintenance shop was taken off the list because we were going to use the shop.
Okay, so you're jumping back to the capital discussion. So that capital discussion,
No, we're gonna, on page 2.
Okay.
Sorry,
Never mind.
and we'll come back to capital
Okay.
here in a little bit.
So Paula, the minimum wage contingency, we've talked about an alternate plan, and I know you don't agree with my alternate plan, but did you calculate what number that would be based on our previous discussions?
I did not really calculate that, no. And I guess my reason for not doing that is you really don't know where those contracts are going to end up.
And I know, but we know also some of the discussions in there. I guess I was just looking for what that alternate number was based on our discussions. And I understand what you're saying. We don't know where negotiations are going to go.
I would have to play with that number a little bit more then. I didn't really do anything very scientific. Yes, sir. Arlen, do you have a question?
Really, 3 options of doing it, paying, I mean, the only 3 I know that you pay that $15 an hour out of next year's budget, or you split it on 2 years. But the hard part is then looking at what you do, sorry about that, of looking at what you do for the employees who get compressed. And that is a big issue to go that. So, but in this proposal at this point, it has everybody being paid the $15 an hour this year,
Yeah.
this next year's budget.
Yes,
And,
it sort of, yes, yes.
and
Well,
So-
that number
so-
that you have there, that was your original plan. That was
Yeah.
the dollar cost of the original plan.
It's an
and-
average of
and
270.
Carrying all the way through.
Right, it's an average of 275 for about 45 people. Yes, 42, whatever it was, something like that. So that's what this contingency, again, this is a contingency. This is not in the individual departments, but that's what this is for an average of like 275.
and that applies to people that are closer to $15 an hour or even over the $15 an hour now.
Yes, it applied to like everybody, pretty much evenly across the board, regardless of how long they've been here or what their current salary is. So if you want,
So I guess if we're gonna give some certainty to this number,
We
how do
need
you,
to, we need to start doing something.
we gotta do something. We've been kicking
Well,
this thing
my alternate
around.
plan was.
So, yeah,
and-
go ahead,
and,
Ray.
You know, I suggested, I understand the $15 an hour is coming down the pipe and we have to comply with it. I think I suggested a three years pattern, 14, 15, 16 to comply. So at the end of 2025, when the $15 an hour minimum is implemented, we're still $1 above that so that we can attract you know, people that are qualified for positions we may be looking for at that point in time, not necessarily meeting the $15 an hour requirement in 2022.
What did you suggest on other people?
That's a separate discussion. Right now, we're trying to comply with the law.
Well, you have a couple of years to comply with the law. It really had more to do with what the market is driving right now, not really what minimum wage is driving right now.
So, and we've heard the discussion. You've made the point, Paula. You know, we heard from the circuit clerk that she's having issues. You know, I think we're hearing loud and clear that the market is driving this more than the law.
Yes, I believe so.
Fair statement.
But we're currently, to my knowledge, last I checked, all our positions are full.
Yes. So, Jennifer.
I have a position in our budget for one more employee, and I've been asked to hold off until the new budget year to replace that employee. And honestly, I don't have time to train another employee right now because of our shift with Wendy taking the county administrator position and me taking over her position. But I can tell you that the person that we did just hire, we had an extremely hard time getting a qualified candidate. And once we found the qualified candidate and offered her the position, got her started, 2 days after she started, once she met with Penny and found out how much the insurance was going to cost and come out of her check, I about lost her. I had to have some conversations with her. She asked if there was any wiggle room on the wages, any way to get that salary bumped up. And I had to really convince her that we're working on, you know, possibly getting a wage adjustment. Please hold on until this new budget year comes through to see if there's going to be any adjustments. So we struggled to get a qualified candidate, and I about lost her within 2 days. And yes, we are looking at hiring another person soon, you know, within probably at the beginning of 2022. And I'm sure I'm going to be struggling with the same problem.
So I guess the question becomes here is we've got 250,000, 255,000 as a holding place. Do you not want it that large, depending on what happens with negotiations, which is generally what you then use to set the rest of the county's salaries, non-union? I mean, we can cut that, but if negotiations end up higher than that, then we're going to need to find it someplace else.
Well, that's my understanding. That's roughly $2.75 raise for the, how many employees does that affect?
42.
That compiles this number. I don't know where you guys are at, but $2.75 raise straight across the board for 42 employees is a pretty large number.
Can I please add something?
Who is that, Amy?
Amy.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
I just wanted to add something to that. I do as well have 2 to 3 women here that are talking about dropping their health insurance. So that is an issue in my office as well.
Rick, can I ask why the $16? I understand how getting people with $15 required by law, your logic on the going to 16 third year. Just add.
Well, I mean, again, it's to help out the departments in getting qualified personnel, because if you got a $15 hour minimum, they can go anywhere and get $15 an hour. So if we want to get, I'll call it the cream of the crop to apply here, we have to be above the $15, I feel. This stair steps is so we don't see the impact all in 1 year. We spread it out over 3 years. And I don't know if $16 is a magic number. I mean, it's a moving target. It depends on the labor market at the time. So to just throw it out there and hope it sticks to the wall today, I think is not very wise. Because the labor market will change. I mean, it just depends on.
So here's my question. What do you guys want in here for this 255,000? Do you have some sort of a consensus on what you want it to be rather than this?
So, well, the thing, we don't know what the cost, so Rick's idea is $1, essentially, $1, $1, and $1 over the next.
Well, I think our
3
current
years.
minimum is $12.38.
The starting wage right now is like 12.38, something like that.
So you're talking about
$12.30
$1.70
$1.70.
over and above if under the plan, if
Oh, gotcha.
it wouldn't be
Because you're
$1, it'd
moving
be
it-
$1.70 for the starting wage.
You're moving that to 14
That's my suggestion.
and then 15 the following year and
Correct.
16 the following year. You know, I'd kicked around in my head and I didn't run the numbers either, was $1.50. You know, split the 275 up over 2 years and you're doing it over 3. So it's so it's really, we can do this. And then, so really what we could have before us in our decision-making process is we can accept Paula's recommendation as it stands. Your proposal over the 3 years, or I think you know, we could consider doing Paula's proposal, only splitting it over 2 years and doing $1.50 and $1.
And that's why Paula put it in contingencies, because we don't know what the end number is going to ultimately be based on negotiation.
Sure.
I think we have to put a number in here for budget purposes. And we're not going to set any, I mean, it's almost like open negotiations here by putting a number in, it's going to be on the table, so.
I don't think the court would necessarily support your budget if it goes past that, and not that this group goes to binding arbitration, but generally that they don't care what you put in your budget. So
Well,
that won't necessarily guide your negotiations.
So I guess my conversation here is I'm not even addressing anybody that makes over if we went to 14. I mean, that's all up for negotiations. I'm just trying to get our bottom entry level positions from 12.38 up to the $14 an hour. And that's the only number we should be looking at. And then, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult situation.
I have a problem splitting the issue of the salaries for everybody and $15 an hour. I mean, that's gonna be, we're just putting out the hard decisions. Because it's easy to do what the law requires. And it's, I understand, but the other thing is gonna be the tough to try it. And I thought maybe we could do it.
Well, in a normal year, you'd say 2%.
What's that?
So in a normal year, you'd say everybody else gets 2%. That's what's been customary.
I don't remember normal years.
That's what we've always budgeted when I was on the finance prior.
That may have been what you budgeted. That's not generally how you've given raises to non-union or the Teamsters. They've been in dollars, not necessarily.
So from a procedural standpoint,
Mhm.
so we're talking about a budget.
Yes.
And we're gonna pass a budget, but
Yes.
salaries is actually, that's a separate,
It-
that's a
exactly.
separate issue.
Exactly.
So-
All you
so
are
what
doing
we're
is trying
dealing
to
with
estimate.
today
Right.
Is budget.
Right. You are only working
Budget
on the budget
number.
and you need to put something in there for raises. So the question is what do you want to put in there for raises that that will not drive your negotiations? It will not drive your negotiations.
Right. Doug.
Yes, sir.
If I'm understanding Rick and figuring it right, it looks like that number would move from 256,880 for next year's budget to 73,500. That's just by doing a one-time move. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of, you've got this plugged in for the full amount.
Yes.
Am I saying that right, Rick?
Yeah.
Basically, it'd be, and that's figuring at $1.75.
No, 275.
42. Hmm?
Yeah, 275. Yeah.
Okay, or double that.
Well,
$1.75.
Paul is at 275. I'm suggesting $1.75.
That's where I said it.
Oh,
Rick
I'm sorry.
suggested,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that's
I'm
where-
sorry. Yes. Okay.
But the number of people that Rick's talking about is different than the 42.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
was
so it's
figuring
not,
42 at $1.75 is where I came from. That's where I'm coming up with that number, the 73.5.
So that would still give us a cushion to be able to negotiate going forward.
It's just,
and that was, okay, now I've got it. Now I gotta get the thing out. Paul's over there thinking. Did you like that word, thinking?
Be careful when that happens.
Yes, sir. Did you want to make a comment?
No.
All right.
Are you calculating what my
And it's actually $1.62.
if you take my 275, the 257,000 and divide it by the 275 and multiply it by the 170, you come up with about $160,000. Is that what you're trying to figure?
Yeah, that's. See, that's why you're the treasurer and I'm not. So we could do, if that's the direction the finance committee is thinking of going, what we could do is, and give us well, for budgetary purposes, we could reduce that line item to 200,000, and that would give us plenty of cushion to then basically kick the can down the road to have that discussion in regards to those, specifically to those salaries and how we wanted it.
Yes. Yes, you could do
Okay.
that.
Does that sound reasonable to everybody so we can move this along?
I would suggest we do the 2 years and not do the 16. What you're proposing, whatever money it takes, give it in a 2-year cycle and not talk about the further issue on what we do with everybody else to negotiate.
Okay, but I think, so, Mike Arlen. So you want to do the 2-year, but I think that's a conversation we're going to have later as we determine what those, specifically what we're going to do with salaries. Right now, we're just looking at the number for the budget that we're going to leave in the budget.
Okay.
So, and what I was suggesting is that we reduce the 256,880 down to 200,000 in contingencies, and then that money, then we can decide on exactly how that's going to flow out.
Jim,
Amy?
can I just clarify something? The hourly wage is actually $12.31 an hour.
Correct.
Okay, I thought I heard 12.38, someone said.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that line item goes down from 256,880 to 200. All right, everybody okay with that? We'll just run this by consensus at this point in time. Keen, you had a comment?
No, sir. I was just
Okay.
gonna mention, I couldn't hear Harlan.
Couldn't hear that last one.
Oh,
well, I couldn't hear.
So
okay, moving on down the page.
yes, moving on down the page. So the next couple of things are just italicized as opposed to bold. That is where I collapsed the 5 other funds into the general fund. And since then, which we don't have to talk about this now because it'll take time, I think we should collapse the public safety fund in there also, but that's a whole nother conversation. So getting to the other bolds, those are the 4 positions that the sheriff has requested in their dispatcher and 2, they're all in there at the patrol level. It's only a couple $1,000s difference per person. So there's 4 positions in there. And then I have, and these guys, I'm glad you're here because you need to be part of this. I have reduced because you have those 4 positions, reduced their part-time by 46,000 because you're not going to necessarily need to hire those part-time mezzanine people. And then there is a reduction to the overtime of $100,000. That's what's built into this budget right now, which your bottom line currently, after that change we just made, is 322,000 in the hole. And let me also say, you don't necessarily have to pass a balanced budget if you don't want to. You can dive into some of your reserves in the general fund. Just a thought out there. Not saying you should or shouldn't do it, just want to make that.
Reserves on the general fund.
How much is in the general fund?
No, you're talking reserves and you're talking.
Reserves in the
Bring it
general
back
fund.
out of capital, what we put over
More or less, yeah.
there, more or less. All right, so.
Well, you could reduce your general fund too. I mean, you got $2,000 or $3,000 in there, so.
Gotcha.
3,500.
Okay, so now you have dispatcher net.
Yeah, so that's net of overtime reduction.
Okay,
But the other ones, I didn't break that out. That's just the 7, okay.
yeah, because looking back at the sheriffs, you got salary part-time, and that was 21 budget was 144. This is still bold 196.
What now?
Go back to page 4.
Go back to page 4. Okay, yes. Yes, so right now his part-time is 196. So you would take off 46. I think I put 46, right? So you would take off this 46. So if we accepted those changes, he would have 150 in part-time, which is largely used by the bailiffs. And that's,
Okay, so part-time goes down to 150.
yes,
Salary overtime, according to the proposal the sheriff made this morning, that we had talked about taking that from 300,000 down to 200,000.
correct.
He's got 95. We'll leave that at the full 100,000.
Oh,
We're talking $5,000.
Okay.
Difference in.
I gotcha. Okay,
Okay. All
I
right.
gotcha.
That should be another 146,000 off, right?
Well, it's
No?
already,
No,
it's already built into the
in?
bottom line because I have it on page 2. It's already built into that bottom line of 320.
Oh, gotcha.
Those negative numbers right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to make it clear, not confusing, but apparently nobody thinks the way that I think. Because to me, this is blatantly obvious.
Which could be true.
Sorry.
Okay. So what we've done so far, we're still, you said 322,000 with the
yeah.
changes we made.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not counting 400,000 for the transfer, so it really.
Is, no, it is.
If you eliminated the transfer of the zoning fees to the capital fund, you would be 80,000 to the good ballpark.
Okay.
For 2022.
And there's no other major issues with any of the other.
Well, not that I'm aware of, but I don't know what you
I'm
guys
not
kept
aware
for
of
There
notes.
was an issue that we talked about and never addressed. Per diem for Alice, a position in the zoning
In
office.
zoning
It was only
office.
$2,000, but I think it's more of sending the wrong message. My understanding that position was advertised as requirement was to take the minutes at the meetings. And we're offering a per diem for that because she was getting it prior to getting hired.
D is not here. Do we want to bring D in, have that discussion or
Am I wrong?
No, that was, yeah, you're right, the conversation was there.
All right. Do we want Dee in?
I don't know.
Should, okay, well, thank you, Jennifer. Sheriff, you have a comment?
Just want to mention something and then have a minute right after your meeting. It's before it's adjourned, but Paula brought up the 150,000 for part-time, which is largely used by court security and our transport team as well. But some of you may or may not know that there is a bailiff fees that are collected as well. And we had a fee study done, I think it was about 2.5 years ago by Bellwether, which has increased those fees that we gather each month. And Paula probably has that number, but it's been running somewhere in the vicinity of 75 to 80,000 each year, roughly. So that is applied towards that 150,000. So it goes to general fund. It doesn't go into that line item, but nonetheless, it does just about cut that in half.
Right. So appreciate the comment. D, we have a question in regards to part of your budget request. And the issue was, we want some clarification on in regards to Alice's. There was when she was hired, part of her deal was a stipend for attending the zoning meetings, and it amounts to roughly $2,000.
She clerks our meetings, our zoning board meetings and our planning commission.
Right. So, Rick.
Well, it was my understanding, I wasn't here during the hiring process, but somebody brought it up, that was advertised as a requirement of the position is to attend those meetings. Am I incorrect in that, or?
That's correct.
So what we're thinking is that $2,000 stipend is kind of an artifact of what we did before, but now it's part of the job description of that position. And should we be figuring out something other than having that stipend in there?
So say that again. You want to figure out a different way of, say that again. I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't want it taken away from her. Put it that way.
you don't want the dollars to be removed from
Correct.
that position.
Correct.
Our issue is that has been part of the job, where before it was an additional duty that was put in and the stipend was paid. We're wanting to move away from having the stipend.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm saying I don't want it taken away from her.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Marilyn.
I think the best way to clarify this is to look at how the job was advertised. And, there should be a clear delineation. If the job advertised that she accepted included attendance and participation at those zoning hearings, then, it's cut and dried, in my opinion.
I guess that's all I'm saying. I mean, it's more of are we setting ourselves up for failure for future positions? I mean, if we advertised it and the job was accepted, we need to be following through with what the job description was.
Paula. No. D.
It is two different positions though, is what I'm. She's secretarial in zoning and planning.
Well, then I'm confused because I was under the impression that was included in the job description.
It is.
And then it's not two positions.
Here you go.
So before Alice was hired on, she was the secretary for the planning commission as well as the zoning board of appeals. I don't know what the job description was for the position she's in right now, but that's what my understanding was, is that it was the position that she had before, and then she took this new position too. So it was two different positions. So if it absorbed in the new position that she has right now, those job responsibilities, that makes sense what you're saying, Rick, but otherwise it is just the two different positions. And that's why she's getting the per diem or the stipend.
So can I ask this of Charlie more or less? So when she took the job the agreed upon salary was that salary in addition to this, to the stipends. So haven't you more or less made a contract? Well, I don't know. It's probably not really a contract because she's at will, but if her understanding was that this is my income, this is what I'm going to be paid for this, for both of these, do we have a liability that we have to follow up on? Because that was what was, regardless of how it was advertised, if that was the agreement when she was hired in, that's an agreement that we have to
Correct,
comply
if
with.
that was the agreement. So the one thing that I'd want to know is what those negotiations were when she came on board in order to be able to take that position. And the cleanest way, if you're going to do it, is going to be, if you're trying to get rid of that stipend or that per diem, I think you're going to have to move whatever a reasonable amount would be to do that other part into her salary, which she's getting right now.
See, and that where, and I don't know whether Rick was going that direction or not. My thing is we have these stipends, and if you have stipends here, there and yon with different employees, then transparency is lost in regards to what we're actually paying in salary. And that's my thing, Dee. It's not that I want to take anything.
And I
away from
understand that.
Alice.
I
I
understand
want to
that.
make sure that we have transparencies so that when we look at salaries, the salaries are clear. And we don't have these hidden things or things that people don't see that's included in the compensation.
I understand. It's just been muddled because she got
Correct.
this job.
So I guess for budgetary purposes, do we, that's really, this is more of a procedure thing. No, but I think it's cleaning up. So, but is that something that we need to do today as far as budget practice or?
Well,
we've-
if you're going to roll it into a regular salary, then no, what's in the budget is going to cover it one way or the other.
But it would have to, what would the action be necessary to remove the stipend and have that done? I mean, is that a resolution or is that a thing that has to come from the finance committee or how is that to be accomplished?
I would need to. Yes, I would have to change, I could drop the per diem amount in zoning and planning by so much and then increase the full-time salary line item for a similar, for a same amount. So I could take 1,000 out of each. I don't know how much she gets, but if I take 500 out of each and move that into, move 1,000 into, I'm gonna ballpark it and assume that maybe that's what she gets out of this every year.
So 12, a meeting a month, 12 months. If there's more than that,
Okay,
goes above and beyond.
so 1,200 from zoning, for sure.
For sure, but
From
with
planning.
huge projects coming on, that she can have 7, 8 meetings a month.
Okay.
Is Alice hourly or is she a salary employee?
She's hourly.
Hourly.
Well,
I don't think she makes enough to be considered salary.
I thought, excuse me, I thought it was brought up at one of our meetings that simply she had to attend, and she does attend, the meeting. She basically, if she spent 4 hours coming and going, attending the meeting, she has 4 hours off the next week, the next day, whatever it may be. Well, I mean, if that's part of the duties.
That doesn't happen.
I've worked positions in government where you didn't get even the hour. I mean, I was salaried and that was it. If you went, I go back and forth Springfield, there was no extra overtime. There was nothing. It was just figured in.
Right, but Department of Labor has certain positions, certain job descriptions, and a certain threshold salary that if you are under that, you are hourly regardless. So you can't just decide somebody is going to be salaried. There's Department of Labor
Okay, well,
regs that
getting
go with
back
that.
to then, there's no possible way, again, to say.
Potentially there is, yes. I'm just saying it's going to have
I'm
to
just
be
trying to
above a
get
certain
through.
amount.
It's just,
I
we're not
understand.
talking a great amount of money here, and I'm just trying to get through this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, all right, you guys have 10 minutes before your executive starts. So rather than continue on with it, because I don't think we're going to do it today, do you guys want to try to set up another meeting? You have your calendars. Yeah. You guys want to just set up a meeting? Because you don't really have time to finish this.
So,
Yes.
yeah, we're gonna end up having to hold one more budget workshop. I think the time we spend now, let's defer this. Let's set up our next budget meeting. Everybody get the calendar out. We gave it our best effort. It's always the devil in the details, right?
Exactly.
Okay. How's everybody look for the 13th?
Monday, the 13th.
Monday, the 13th,
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Everybody good?
I know Lyram can't make those, but
You what?
I said I know Lyram can't make Mondays or Tuesdays, Mondays or Wednesdays. I think he teaches. But
Who?
Lyram,
Oh, Lyram, right.
but I mean, if everybody else can make it, I wouldn't probably get too wrapped around the axle about it.
Right.
9 a.m.
Okay. Yep.
Oh,
Oh,
you
you
don't
gotta
have
get
enough
notice.
time, do
Can
you?
get the notice? Probably can't get the notice done in
Because they don't have
time.
a Monday paper.
So,
sorry.
well,
They're weekly, so I think they're.
yeah, they're more of a
Wednesday.
problem than the Telegraph. How about, let's try to get Lyram. How's everybody on Wednesday?
Wednesday's good.
Wednesday's good for you? Rick?
Right, but they. if-
Rick, we're
depending on
moving
the
on.
Deadline, we
No.
might not get it
Wednesday,
in tomorrow's
Wednesday.
paper.
I'm only good for a couple hours.
That's what they don't guarantee that we'll get it in.
What, all we need you for is a couple hours.
10:30.
To what?
I'm good till 10:30.
So if we start at 8,
I'm fine with that. If everybody else is, I don't want
Arlen, can you start at 8?
I could be late, depending on if that person shows up, but that's fine.
Rick, 8?
What date are we on now?
On Wednesday,
Wednesday, the
the
12th.
15th.
No. Oh, you're right. The
Wednesday,
15th.
the 15th. That gets Lyram here. Yeah.
3-hour notice.
That's why we're backing off of
No,
Monday.
but what I'm saying is, get to the telegraph today, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they print it Saturday.
Yeah, they always have to call. Yeah.
Depending on their deadline today for tomorrow's paper. We might not get it in Friday.
If we can be there, if we can all meet Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, it's a moot point.
unless you want to do Friday.
Same the week, Sunday and Monday.
Okay. Wednesday, we have a consensus. Wednesday, 8 bells, not 9, 8 bells.
Okay.
And we should be able to wrap this up.
Yep.
Okay.
Hope so.
And we'll get done in time for Tom to make his appointment at 10:30. All right, Wednesday, 8 a.m.
Wednesday, 8 a.m. Wednesday, September 15th, 8 a.m.
Right. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Arlen, seconded by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carried.